Hmm.
Hey folks, we're going to get started here in a second. I'm just going to give everyone a couple more seconds here to join us, and then we'll get started. All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from today. Welcome to today's webinar, co-hosted by the New York Oracle User Group and Oracle partner, Viscosity North America. Today's webinar is from our Oracle Level Up series, featuring product managers from the Oracle Enterprise and Cloud Observability and Management team. Yes, this is a live webinar, so feel free to submit questions in the Q&A field, and our speaker, Anna McCollum, and her team will get to your questions as they can. Anything not answered by the end, she'll go ahead and identify, but there are 3 other folks here ready to give you their expertise. So please take advantage of this hour with them. It's great to have them back again speaking for us. All right. So as I said, it's co-hosted by Viscosity and NYOUG. My name is Monica, and I'm from Viscosity. I work as the marketing director there, and we've been co-presenting these webinars with Coleman here and NYOUG. So we're super excited for those of you who are returning, and for those of you who may be new, welcome, welcome. Coleman's going to tell us a little bit about NYOUG, then I'll tell you a little bit about Viscosity, and we'll get going.
Thank you, Monica. The New York Oracle Users Group, we've been formed in 1984, just such a short time ago, for the exchange of ideas, assistance, and support among users of Oracle software products. Next slide. And you can connect with us on X, Meetup, LinkedIn, Facebook, and our website, nyoug.org. And we're always looking for abstracts from speakers such as yourself. Or if you know someone that wants to speak to the audience that'll be co-hosted with Viscosity, let us know. And if your particular presentation meets anything in the Oracle framework, you're in. And we want to thank again Viscosity for co-hosting these series of webinars with us. And also thanks to Oracle for supporting us through these years. Monica?
Yes, thank you so much. And yes, big thank you to Oracle. Especially in this series, we've been working specifically with Steve Lemmy, if you're familiar with him from any user group conferences and such. You'll hear from him in a bit too. I do want to point out before I get started that today's webinar is recorded and it is live, so you can go check out the recording at nyoug.org, accompanied by the slide deck from today's speaker. So definitely check your inbox for any messages about when all of that is uploaded. All right, and I'm going to go through this quickly. Viscosity is a full Oracle Stack consulting firm. We are built on these 3 main pillars: data, apps, and cloud. If you see anything here that resonates with any pain points you've been having, feel free to let me know. You'll probably get a follow-up email from me or my teammate after this, and you feel free to just reply back to that. Across the bottom, you'll see things we offer across all 3 pillars. So from proof of concepts to assessments and managed services, we can help you out. All right, on this slide, I'm just showcasing some of our featured consultants. They are heavily involved in the user group community, in writing books, blogs, you name it. And they are often featured in webinars like this or on site at conferences specifically for Oracle users. They're part of the Oracle ACE program, which, if you're not familiar with that, is pretty cool. It is run by Oracle, and it is tiers of titles given to people who do not work for Oracle that are out there working to educate the masses of Oracle users. So if you haven't seen them present, highly recommend it. They're great folks. Okay, on this slide, just a couple more things we do in a different format. I'm just going to keep going here. Books we've written, the most recent ones, and we will have updates. We typically have updates to like this Oracle database performance tuning and upgrading Oracle databases books around Oracle Cloud Time. So normally in the fall, so look for that. And then we've got Oracle on Docker that just came out last year, and some of these other goodies. I think PDB Oracle Cloud book will come out with a update too, I believe. All right, and then Viscosity webinars are all hosted at orapub.com. It's where we have our database of recordings and slide decks. It's also where we offer a lot of training, and it's live training, but a bunch of different tools there. Go check out www.orapub.com. You can sign up as a free member and check out a bunch of free resources there. There are paid membership tiers that you can check out as well. And we always recommend seeing if your employer would be up for reimbursing you for that. So definitely look into that. All right. With that, NYOUG and Viscosity have a ton of joint events. We also have a bunch of our own webinars. So check out nyoug.org or check out events.viscosityna.com for more webinars coming up. Viscosity has been hitting the road a lot more these days, so we are in person. So you can also check out if we are in a city near you. And with that, I am going to turn that over to Steve, who's going to introduce our speaker today.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Coleman. So for those of you that are New York Oracle User Group members, you're probably familiar with, monitoring databases and all those alert notifications that you get. And in fact, when I was a DBA, I would get so many, I would just turn them off. Well, we have the experts here today to help you, whether you're doing that with your traditional databases or as you've moved into the new realm of observability, where there's more telemetry than you can ever imagine. And so we've got some great resources here that are behind the scenes on the Q&A. So please use the Q&A panel during today's session. And I'd like to turn it over to our expert product manager in this area, Anna. And at the end, she'll be sharing a unique opportunity for customers. We have an upcoming customer advisory board, and Anna's got all the details she'll be sharing at the end of today's presentation. So all yours, Anna.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Can you hear me and can you see my slide?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. I'm Anna McCollum. I'm very happy to be here to talk to you about our latest enhancements in the monitoring space. Specifically, this session is about smarter ways to manage incidents with event compression and dynamic runbooks. I'm with the PM team of Enterprise and Cloud Manageability. Also joining me today as panelists, we have Desiree Abroka, also in the PM team. And we have our lead developers in this area. We have Manas Goswami and Chris Roy. And as they mentioned, if you had any questions, please post it in the Q&A and they'll answer it live. I am going to talk a little bit about some of our upcoming features. So here's the reminder of our safe harbor statement. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to start with an overview of our solution for managing incidents, and then I'm going to dive into two key aspects of that solution, which is event compression and dynamic runbooks. Many, if not all of you attending this webinar today are Enterprise Manager users, most likely using Enterprise Manager to monitor your environment, database, host, applications, the whole landscape. We know that over time, the number of managed or monitored targets probably grow. And with that, the volume and variety of events that you need to manage also grow. So it's important for our team to continue to invest in solutions to enable you to monitor these events at scale. Our solution consists of, first, enabling you to create incidents for the events that are actionable. When these incidents are created, you can open tickets and send notifications on these incidents. We also recommend that you use event compression policies to reduce that overall volume of incidents by correlating and combining or compressing related events into an incident. And then finally, using dynamic runbooks to capture all of your subject matter expertise in diagnosing and resolving that incident and make that available inside Enterprise Manager, so it becomes very convenient for your IT ops teams to run those runbook steps in EM itself. Let me talk about event compression policies. So what is an event compression policy? You can think of it as a rule that states a condition under which multiple correlated or related events should be grouped together in an incident. Oracle provides some out-of-box event compression policies that cover the most common event scenarios, and you can also author your own event compression policies if you have a use case for which none of our out-of-box policies exactly meet your use case. With the policy, it doesn't work alone. You have to use it in conjunction with your incident creating rules. And what happens is, as long as you specify your incident rules that you want event compression policies to be enabled, then it will, try to find a matching policy and group or compress those events when creating the incident. So let me give you a little bit more detail on how that works. So in the right part of my screen here, my slide here, I have an incident rule set. And let's say you specify in the incident rule set your production group of targets. And you have a rule that says for all target down events, I want an incident created and also use the event compression policies. So let's say you have a scenario where you have your WebLogic servers go down. Let's say 3 WebLogic servers go down and each of them generates a target down event. Now, when Enterprise Manager looks at the rule to create an incident, it notices that you've specified to use event compression policies. So what happens is it will try to first locate a matching policy. And if it does locate a matching policy for this particular scenario, it will compress and correlate and compress those events based on the policy. And so you end up with one incident with 3 events instead of 3 incidents of 1 event each. This is a screenshot of the event compressions policy UI. Here you can see all of our out-of-box event compression policies, and you can also author your own policies as well. Let me walk you through the creation of an event compression policy. The event compression policies are located under the incidents menu under setup. Here you see not only the out-of-box compression policies provided by Oracle, but also anything that you author as well or your team authors will be available here as well. You can click on any of these policies to get details. This specific event compression policy is about correlating and compressing target down events from a database system and its members. And here is the logic of the compression policy. Basically, it says when target availability events, otherwise known as target down events, for a database system and its member target types, for the event severity fatal, basically target down events, when these occur within 15 minutes of each other, then I want to compress it such that all the events that belong to targets of the same database system should be compressed together. So basically, you can think of it as your compressed by or your group by clause, okay? So this is what this logic tells us. Also, as part of the policy, you can indicate what that incident message with compressed events look like. This is the default format, which you can keep or you can change as well when you define your own event compression policies. So let's walk through the creation of a new policy. In this use case, I want to compress all of my coherence target availability events together. So first I give the compression policy a name and a description. Then I choose the events that I want to compress together. I'm interested in my target down event, so I'm going to choose target availability as the event type. Then I'm going to choose the target types for these events. I want my coherence targets. So I'm going to choose all of those coherence target types. Then I choose the event severity. I'm interested in the fatal event severity as well as the critical event severity. Next, I specify my time window. For this example, I want these events to occur within 60 minutes of each other. So I'm going to adjust the time window to 60 minutes. Then here's my compress by or my group by clause. The default is compress it based on having the same ancestor. When we say by ancestor, it's a parent or grandparent of the target. We have all the other compress by logic that we support, but commonly we see that the ancestor type is something that's commonly used, although we support other criteria as well. For this scenario, I'm going to keep the ancestor target type. And then I'm going to also specify the coherence cluster as that ancestor target type. So what this is saying is for all the target availability events for my coherence target types that are of fatal and critical severity, if they occur within 60 minutes of each other, I want to have these events grouped by the Oracle coherence cluster, okay? I can also choose to edit the message for the incident that will be raised when any of these events occur and will be compressed together, or I can choose to keep the default, which I will, okay? After this, all you need to do is save it, and that's pretty much it, okay? Once I've defined my event compression policy, the next thing I'd like to do is test it. And this is where our event compression analysis tool comes into play. The event compression analysis tool allows you to test any new work in progress or draft policies that you may have authored yourself. And it also tests the existing policies that Oracle provides for you. And it's a way for you to verify that these policies are actually effective for your own set of events. So what happens is through simulation, you'll get a set of incidents. We'll basically simulate the creation of incidents if compression policies are enabled, and you can compare that against the incidents that are created without compression policies enabled. And then you can actually see for yourself, do I get a smaller set of incidents with event compression, or is it pretty much the same, right? Against your specific events. So this helps you analyze it against your own environment. The input of the event compression analysis tool is a set of targets whose events you want analyzed. We recommend specifying group of targets, the time frame in which these events occurred, and then if you also want to test any policies that you are yourself creating called a draft policy, then you can also include that draft policy to be tested as well. So let me walk you through the testing of these policies with the event compression analysis tool. So here is the coherence event compression policy that we just created. In order to test it, I need to first enable it, okay? And once it's enabled, now I can access the event compression analysis tool. Let me start a new analysis. Let me give the analysis a name. And then let me specify the targets whose events are going to be used for the analysis. By default, we recommend that you choose a group containing these targets, but you also have different types of aggregate targets that you can specify as well. For now, I'm going to choose group. Then I'm going to choose the coherence targets group that has all my coherence targets. Then you specify the time frame for when these events occurred. You can use the calendar to help you choose the dates, or you can just type it in directly. And since I have a work in progress draft policy that I also want tested, I'm going to choose the option to include the draft policy. Then I start the analysis job. It kicks off a job that you can, view the progress here. It'll take, basically probably about a minute or less. And once that's completed, you can then access the analysis. This is what the analysis shows me. It says for the group of targets that I've chosen for the time period that I've chosen, it analyzed 30 events. And as far as incidents creations are concerned, without event compression policies, I have 30 incidents. With compression policies enabled, I have 10 incidents, which is 66% fewer incidents that I need to manage. And the average compression ratio is about 3 events compressed per incident. The chart at the bottom here gives a pictorial view of the events and as well as the incidents. So this gray line represents the volume of events. And then the blue bar chart represents incidents without compression policy, so the number or volume. And the orange line is incidents with compression policies. So you can even see pictorially that you have a lot less incidents if you had compression policies enabled for these set of events. You can always drill down to any chart. So I click on this, and this shows me the specific incidents that were created. Each blue line here on the left represents an incident with that single event that's part of it. And the orange line here represents an incident with compressed events. I can even see visually right here, each of these events represented by these lines that are part of individual incidents if I did not have compression enabled. With compression, you can see all of these individual events are now compressed into this single incident. And I can further click on this and look at the specific events that are compressed together in this particular incident. Okay. So let's say I'm happy with this result. Yep, this is behaving as I hope it would be. So let me now start using that event compression policy that I created. To do that, I need to go back to my event compression policy. Remember that it's still in draft mode. So in order for it to be in use, I have to publish it. It'll confirm that I do want to publish it. And once it's published, it's ready to be used with incident rule sets. Remember, this is part of the solution. The other part is actually having an incident rule where you say, yep, I do want to use event compression policies whenever incidents are created. So let's see what that looks like. So I go to setup, I go to incidents, go to incident rules. Here I already have an incident rule set that has all of my coherence targets and where I've chosen my target availability events. So I can now go into this rule and go to the specific rule where I've chosen my target availability events from my coherence targets. And in the action part of the rule where I say create incident, choose the use event compression policies, which is our recommended choice, right? So with this choice, with create incident enabled, let me just continue to save this. What that means is, should these events occur, it will go to the rules. It will notice that you have create incidents with event compression policies enabled. It will check the list of available event compression policies, locate something that matches this particular scenario, which it will find, and then it will compress the events into that incidence based on the logic specified in the event compression policy. Okay, so that's how this works. There is a recent enhancement we've added to event compression policies, and this is new in 13.5 release update 18. Prior to release update 18, the compression logic works on events of the same event type, all target availability events or all metric alert events. However, you might have scenarios where you want to compress events across multiple event types. So you might have a scenario where a database down event, which is a target availability event, may cause some connectivity related metric alerts on some dependent applications. So in that scenario, you might want to compress a target down, target availability event with a metric alert, which is a different event type. So starting with RU 18 and beyond, you can create policies that where you can combine these different event types and compress that together in an incident. There are two steps involved with this. First, you need to have an event compression policy where you specify the different types of events that you want to compress. And then you need to specify in your incident rule set that I do want to compress multiple event types. So for this first step, you'll need to create an event compression policy, like very similar to what I demoed earlier. But in the event compression policy, choose the multiple event types that you want to compress together. You might want to compress, for example, the target availability, which is our target down events, with metric alert events, and also choose the corresponding target types that that are associated with these event types, and fill in the rest of the logic. Now, after you've defined your policy and went through the process of testing and publishing, you also need to make sure that in your incident rule sets that you've chosen the option to compress multiple event types. The way that you specify this in your incident rule is a new option that we provide in the rules section of your incident rules. Specifically, look for a section called event compression. And then there's a second radio button here called allow policies to compress events across event types from multiple rules in the rule set. Basically, this is a rule set level compression. If you recall, in a rule within an incident rule, they pertain to one event type. So this first rule here pertains to all metric alert event types. The second rule here pertains to all target availability event types. Now, if you do want to compress events from the metric alert events, which you specify in this rule, with the target availability events, those target down events, which are chosen by this second event rule, then remember to choose this second event compression option, which enables the compression of events from metric alert event types, as well as target availability event types. Okay, so those are the two things that you need to keep in mind when you want to compress events across multiple event types. I'm going to move on and talk about dynamic runbooks. Dynamic runbooks enable your subject matter experts to capture all of their best practices procedures from wherever they happen to live now. Maybe they're in a wiki page or some custom scripts or some other share, location. Instead of having that outside Enterprise Manager, why not put them inside Enterprise Manager so that your IT ops teams have direct and immediate access to those runbook steps in the form of things that they can actually execute in context of the incident inside Enterprise Manager. There are two workflows involved with using dynamic runbooks. One is the creation workflow. So what your subject matter experts will do is to start the runbook creation in context of an actual incident. And we call that runbook, that's currently work in progress, a runbook draft. When you create it in context of that incident, what that means is the context of the incident, the target of the incident, the metric of the, let's say it's a metric alert for that incident, the metric value, the event timestamp, all of that information, the context of that incident is carried over to the runbook draft. And that's convenient as you are developing your steps in your runbook, you have that context against which to test your steps, okay? And I'll give you a demo of this in a few minutes. Okay, so with that context, you're able to develop and test your runbook steps in context of that incident. And once you're happy with your runbook, you can go ahead and publish, and it becomes available for public use. Now, how do your runbooks get used? Let's say that incident occurred, then your IT team can go to Incident Manager, start a runbook session, and when they start a runbook session, they can choose that runbook that you've created, and all they really basically need to do is execute the steps in the runbook session until they successfully triage and resolve the incident. Now let's talk about the type of actions that you can do inside a runbook. We call that runbook steps. The first type of step is what we call a note step, and this is useful for providing instructions to the IT ops teams. Working with customers, we hear that there are often other things that they need to do that are outside of executable code. This could be things like, check with apps team and make sure they're okay before we drop their logs, things of that nature, right? So why not include all of these other, steps that they need to do as part of your runbook itself? When you provide the instructions, you can use markdown syntax to format it. You can add a link to a must note if you want to have, reference additional background information. You can link to anywhere, extra documentation or your own pages for, again, additional background information. And also coming soon, you can link to any page, any enterprise manager page. EM has a wealth of information that you typically use, we assume, when triaging incidents, access the DB performance page, access the job execution page to find out the status of the job, all of those pages. You can now, coming soon, incorporate and put a link to those pages inside your runbook. You can also run target SQL against a target database if the incident is against a database. You can run queries, you can run DML or DDL against your target database. It does require the use of credentials when running the target SQL. If you've configured your name credentials to work with privileged access management providers, PAM providers such as CyberArk, if you've configured it to work with that to get the credential values, that will also work with those PAM providers as well. You can use repository SQL to run queries to get data against the EM repository views. You can show metric time series in a chart. And you can also run a synchronous OS command or script against the host target if the host is the target of the incident, or the host of the target. Let's say it's a database target, it will run on the host of the database. And since we also require credentials to run the OS command or script, it will use named credentials, including credentials that you may have configured with PAM providers. We often get the question, okay, this is great. You have dynamic runbooks to help, resolve these incidents, and we also have corrective actions. So what's the difference between the two? Well, both can be used to respond to alerts. Corrective actions, however, are used to script an automated response to an alert. If there's a way to just automatically resolve it, the table space is full, add space, that listener is down, start it up, right? If these something that could be scripted and avoid human intervention and all, go ahead and script that and use corrective actions to just take care of that automatically. However, there's also a set of issues for which automated script may not be the best response. And typically this could involve, multi-step procedures that require some human being to make some decisions. They might need to run the first triage step, analyze that output, and based on the output, take different actions, based on the triage that they're doing. And so for these types of incident resolution activities, we do offer dynamic runbooks as a way for you to meet this use case. Dynamic runbooks are supported for incidents. In a future release, we'll also support it for metrics, and we're going to expand it to other functional areas in EM such as jobs, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Now let's walk through the use of a dynamic runbooks for an FRA or fast recovery full incident. Okay. Here I have an incident manager, and an incident manager, I have an FRA or a fast recovery full incident. Notice we've added a new section here called Runbook Sessions. And, I'm taking on the persona of an IT ops person. My job is to resolve this FRA incident. So I could start a runbook session, and I can select this FRA runbook that is available to me from within Incident Manager. When I click on this, it opens up a new tab and it starts a runbook session for me, carrying over the context of that incident. So here's the message, here's the creation time, and the target on which that incident was created. Then I simply execute the steps one after another. The first step is the overview step, okay? So this runbook can be used to triage and resolve FRA incidents. Prior to beginning, make sure I have access to the name credentials for this database on which the FRA incident occurred, which I do have. And it's also telling me that I'm going to use that name credential for the steps that require database credential, okay? So I'm done with this step. I, check mark that off, okay? The next step, review the metric that triggered the incident. Review the metric data for this FRA percent used over time and note if there's an increasing trend. Okay, I have a play button here. So all I really need to do is click on the play button and it shows me the metric chart for the FRA metric. I do notice that there has been an increasing use of FRA over time. This line here indicates when that event for the incident occurred. And here are my warning and critical threshold lines. So it's way beyond my warning or critical thresholds line at this point. Okay, it did tell me to note if there's an increasing trend. So where do I, put my notes and observations? Instead of putting that somewhere else, you can embed that directly inside the runbook session. So if I click on here, I have access to provide comments as I am triaging and this incident. I can type my comments right here and then save it, okay? So also we save all of the context, including the comments, so that later on, if your team wants to do a postmortem of this particular incident, then all of the comments and all of the observations that that person has noted will also be accessible, to your postmortem team, okay? Next, check the FRA size for the database. Run this step to check if the FRA size for the database is set to at least 350 gigs. And if I need to be reminded about what an FRA is, there's a convenient link for me to do so, okay? So let me click on this. I notice it's not a play button, but a gear icon. And that means that I need to provide an input for this step to run. Now this step requires my credentials to run the step, which I can specify. I save, and then I run that. And here's the output. Okay, so this FRA size is actually 200 gigs and not 350. So it seems like I need to increase the size here. Okay, next step. If I need to increase the FRA size, before increasing the size, first identify the file system used by the FRA. Okay, so let me click on this step. And it tells me, oh, okay, so here is the file system that's used by the FRA. Okay, next step. Check the file system for enough free space to increase the FRA. Ensure there's enough space in this location so that the next step can increase the size. Okay, so let me run this step. And okay, it has 246 gigs. Okay, I do have enough space to increase it. Next step, change the FRA size to 350 gigs. I notice another gear icon. So that means I probably need to specify, credentials. And here I need to specify privileged credentials, which I can then specify, type save. And now it's increased the FRA size. And the last step, run the step to verify the FRA size is now set to 350 gigs, which I've done. Okay, so this is a simple example of how your IT ops team can just simply follow all the directions and if prompted, specify credentials to run the step. Now, assuming that, if I've successfully, triage and finish this, I can mark this runbook session as done. Yep, I'm done with this. And it's reminding me if it's done, I can no longer rerun any steps, but I can view the session details. Should I mark it as done? Yep, I do want to mark it as done. Okay. Later on, if your team has a practice of, doing a postmortem of incidents that the team has collectively, triaged over time, you have access to your runbook session for a period of time. We have, an expiration date, which we show here, but you can also extend that if needed. Let's say we're now, doing a postmortem. I can go back to all of the runbook sessions that were used to triage all the past incidents. It captures all of the data that was shown at the time it was triaged. And, it also knows that it's a read-only mode, but I can continue to add comments as part of my postmortem activity, clicking on this. it'll allow me to, put, my conclusion after the postmortem activity. Yep, the FRA was undersized. We need to make sure that all the FRA sizes for other databases are correctly sized, or, whatever comments you might add, and you can save that. Okay. Go back to the presentation. So let's say that you have, your subject matter experts had authored your runbooks, and you want to make sure that that runbook that you authored is something that your IT ops teams will use when triaging incidents. How do you do that? Okay, let me skip over this. You know what? Let me talk about that later on, because I don't want to spoil a demo of creating a runbook. So let me pause that thought, and I will talk to you about how to do that later on. For now, let me give you a demo of creating runbooks. So let me go here and to my runbook creation demo. Okay. So let me talk about how that runbook was created, or at least part of the steps for creating that runbook. Here is Incident Manager, and if you have the privileges to create a runbook, then you'll also see a Create Runbook link here. If you don't have the privileges, then you won't have the Create Runbook. And we know, you typically might want to control who gets to author runbooks, and so there is a privilege required in order for you to author in runbook. Okay, so I'm coming in as a persona that does have that privilege. And so this link will be available to me. When I create the runbook, then the context of that particular incident, which is the FRA incident, will be available to me. It will be shown here at the top. And then notice at the right part here is a list of variables that contain all of the information, all of the context of that particular incident. We have the event type, the time, the target, the host of the target, all of that information is available here as well, okay? And we make that available because as you're developing steps, you might want to access some of these runbook variables as part of your step definition, and I'll give you a demo of that in a minute. Okay, so the first thing you might want to do is specify the runbook name. So you can click on the pencil icon, specify the runbook name, and then click, then save that. Okay. Next, you might want to use the target name as part of the runbook step. And so you can scroll through the list of the variables, or you can easily filter the list of variables by the name. And if I put target here, notice that it filters to the set of variables that contain anything related to a target. Target name, target type, all that good information, okay? The first thing that we recommend you specify is give an overview what that runbook is about and any prereq steps. If you recall, I did mention that you can use some markdown syntax. To remind you of what that syntax is, you can click on the eye icon, and here's some of the syntax. You can, go through the list. You can put things in bold and put, bullets, et cetera, all that good stuff. Once you've, figured out what syntax, what markdown syntax you might use and what information you want to put, go ahead and start typing that. Notice I'm using the target name here. I just simply reference or a target name, which I put here so that at runtime during the session, the runbook session, it will just substitute the actual target name inside the runbook. And then I can put, I can make it bold or, whatever formatting I want. And then I click save. Once I do that, every time you click save, we'll show you what that step would look like if your runbook session user were actually running the step. So it's a way for you to check what that looks like, for your end user's perspective. The next step I want to do is I want to do want to show the metric data. So I want to choose a metric data step. In general, this is the format of a runbook step. You give it a title, which is, what this step is about. Then you give it instructions. And then here's the body of that step. And then, this part is different based on what type of step it is. For this, I want to display the FRA metric. And so I'm going to give it, the title of the step is I want the users to review the FRA usage. Instruction, review the FRA usage over time. And then here is when I want to display the metric chart. Notice it pre-populates for me automatically the target on which, from which I created this runbook. Also pre-populated the metric name automatically for me. It also populated the time range. By default, we position the chart to look at 6 hours before when the event of the incident occurs. So EVT time for an incident is when the event of that incident triggered. Minus 6H is 6 hours before. We have hours and days notation until now, which is like the present time. You can adjust any of these days, and if you do that, you can preview it. But for now, I'm okay with it, so I'm going to call it done. And then you can run it, right? So all of these steps also have a run button, so you can, check to see what it looks like. And if needed, you can adjust, any of the parameters of the step. I'm happy with this. I'm going to save it. The next step, if you recall, is to, find out the FRA, setting. So for that, I'm going to use a target SQL. My step is checking the FRA size of the database, and I'm going to put the corresponding instructions, check to see if that, again, that database, and I'm going to use a, variable to substitute the database name is at least this size. I'm going to then also specify, this is a target SQL. So this is where you specify the query or the DML, DDL, as well as credentials. I'm going to specify the query to be used to run against my database, and then it needs credentials to run. I'm going to specify for now this name credentials to be used. Mark that done, it's a query, and then I can go ahead and test it out, make sure it's returning the value expected to return, and then I can save it. And then this is, it shows me what the end user would see. Now, notice I've kind of specified my own, name credentials. In real life, you may not want to specify your own credentials when your users use your runbook. You might want to have them specify their own credentials. So how do you do that as a runbook author? What you do, let me go back in edit mode, is this is where you use variables. And in your variable, you can specify, I want the value of the variable to come from the runbook session user. So going back to name credentials, I can say to populate the name credential, use a value from a variable. Now here it's the next thing it'll ask me to do is like, tell me which variable to use. Well, I haven't set it up, and that's why it's giving me this message. When creating a variable, especially those that contain credentials, we do expect that the variable name have the suffix of _cred. Okay, so this tells us like, oh, this variable will be used for a credential. So make sure you put _cred. Okay, so let me walk through the creation of that credential. Okay, so here in the variable section here, I'm going to add a variable called userdb _cred. I'm going to give it a name, give it a description, the credentials, create a database. For this runbook draft, as I'm testing, this is what I wanted to use. And this is then asking me, how do I want this value populated during a runbook session? Is it going to be specified by the session user or by running a step? Or is it specified by the author or by running a step? I'm going to choose the first option because I want it specified by the session user. Okay, I'm going to click OK. And once I've created the variable, now going back to the name credential, I'm going to say, to populate that, I want it to get the value from this variable, okay? And then I'm going to hit done, and I'm going to save that, okay? So that's how you can set up your step to ask for the user to specify their credentials when running a step, okay? Let me move on and talk about other features. The next step, if you recall, had to do with checking the FRA location of the file system. So I'm going to, put the step name and instruction. This is about, hey, if you need to increase the size, first let's find out what file system is used by that FRA. Okay, this is another target SQL step that we're going to use to query this from the target database. Here's my query. And then for my credentials, I'm going to use that variable that I just created and use for the other step. I'm going to use it for this step as well. Okay, and then I can, after that, go ahead and run it. confirm that the results are what I expected, and then I'm going to go ahead and I can go ahead and save it, right? Now, if you recall, in that demo, we actually have a step after this that takes that file system location, and then we check for how much space is available. So if you have a runbook, runbook set of steps where you need the output of a step to be used as input to another step, then what you will do is you want to save the output of that step to a variable, and then that subsequent step can then access that variable inside its logic, right? So here, if you notice at the bottom, I have a display, and I also have a save to variables section here. So what you can do is you can click on save to variable, because this FRA location, this file system, is something I want to save because I'm going to use it in a subsequent step. So clicking on save to variable, first identify, which cell contains that value that I want to save to a variable, which is this FRA location. So I click on this cell. It prompts me to, save it, identify the variable that it's going to save the value to. And it gives me the list of variables. Well, I don't want to use my database credential variable, so I'm going to create a new variable. I'm going to, conveniently just type it here. This is my new variable, user FRA location, give it a name, and then I'm going to save that. Okay. Now the output of this step will be saved to a variable, which I'm going to then later use in a subsequent step. So I go ahead and save that. Okay. And then my next step is actually going to use that variable. My next step is an OS command step. And this step will check to see if my file system has enough free space. Okay. So here I do want to access that variable that I created. Now, if you don't see it in the list, chances are that maybe you have filtered it to only showcase certain variables. So at any point in time, you can remove the filter, and that'll show you the complete list of all the variables. And here's that variable that I just defined. Okay. So for this step, for now, I'm just gonna put credentials, and here I'm going to specify a script. I'm going to then put the body of my script here. Notice the script is using that user FRA variable as part of the logic of the script, right? And this is that variable whose value we receive by running that prior step. Okay. Now, in order to actually test this, I need to specify a value for this a variable, which I have not set yet. So here, you can notice here, the value has not been set. So I can easily click on this and then specify that for this draft, as I'm testing it, I want to use this particular value, and I can go ahead and save that and then run it, and then, verify the output. If this is what I expect, then I'm good. Then I save it. Okay. So, so this demo just showcases, how to construct steps, how to specify a step where a user is prompted to specify inputs such as credentials, how to create logic so that if you have, you have an output that needs to be an input to another step, how you can use variables as a way, to share that information between steps, right? So go on and complete the runbook. And once you're done, let's pretend I'm done, I'm happy with this. You go ahead and then publish it. Notice you have these messages that pop out. We actually automatically save all of this. You no need to find that save button to save it. We just automatically save it. So you're good to go. If you're happy with it, go back to Runbooks, click on Action, click Publish. It will also ask you, before I publish it, do you want to keep a draft copy of this runbook? Because if you're still in the middle of editing it and want to go back, then there's a draft copy really conveniently available for you to use. So if that's my case, I want to say, yep, keep a draft. Now, if you don't do it or forgot to do it, no big deal. If later on you need to create a new version of your runbook, when you do a create new version, a draft for the runbook will automatically create it for you, right? So it's okay if you choose not to keep this, but this is here as an easy, convenient option for you, okay? So you click that, and that's pretty much it, right? Your runbook is now available and published for use. Okay, so going back to my slides. Okay, now that question that I asked earlier, now this is something I can answer because I demoed the creation of the runbook. So if you did take time to create the runbook and this is what I want my teams to use, then how do I designate it? Okay, since we talked about how to create it, now how do I tell users this is what you should use? This is the way to do it is in your incident rule sets. If you recall in the actions part, we've added under create incident, we've also added another section called runbook setup. And this is where you can specify the runbook that you want your team to use. And if you do that, when you're in incident manager, if you recall in that runbook session, then that runbook that you've created and designated will, pop up at the top and it'll say, yep, this is what's recommended. So go ahead and use that, right? So this is how you put these things together. Okay, in addition to authoring your own runbooks, at Oracle, we also want to capture our subject matter expertise and make it available to you as in the form of runbooks. We have, working with our support team, a runbook for table space metric errors. We also have a runbook in case you have a lot of agent backoff requests. So this is about Enterprise Manager itself. And also we recently released a runbook if you have scenarios where you get a job that's in the status of suspended because agent is not ready. We also have a runbook for that as well. I've talked about using runbooks in context of incidents, but we also want to expand the use of runbooks outside of incidents. So the next area that we're planning to make this available, not yet available, future release, is with metrics. And this is accessible from the targets all metrics page. Let's see. In this UI, I am showing you the all metrics page of a host homepage. This is not our demo live environment, so I had to mask some of the data, but hopefully you'll still get the gist of what this runbook is about. So this should look familiar to you. This is our all metrics page. And if you select a particular metric and look at a chart, you'll notice that we now have a new section, or soon we'll have a new section for you called Runbook Sessions. And it's very similar to that Runbook Sessions that we've added in Incident Manager. If you have author privileges, then you can create a runbook using this link carrying over the context of this metric. If you don't have it, you won't have the create runbook link. And then if there's a runbook already available and published for you to use, then it becomes available for you in context of the metric. So where would you use this? Perhaps you might want to do some proactive steps. Maybe that metric hasn't crossed the threshold yet, but you want to do some preventive measures to prevent it from reaching that threshold and creating an incident, right? That would be an example of where you might, want to have a runbook, for your metrics. So let me demo to you how you would use a runbook in context of a metric. Here I have a CPU utilization metric. I see, kind of goes up and maybe goes down. But let me take a look at this runbook for CPU. I click on the runbook link. Again, it opens a new tab. This interface hopefully should look familiar to you. This is my runbook session. The context of the particular runbook in this example, the metric is now the context. This is a CPU metric for my host target. And let me look at the first step, overview and prerequisites. This is a runbook for the CPU utilization for my host. Use this runbook when you see possible increase in CPU utilization on the host, okay? First, check the recent trend of CPU. Review CPU utilization over time and see if it's increasing. Okay, it hasn't been run yet. I know I have to click the play button and it gives me the value of the CPU usage over time. I see it goes up and down and up and down, not quite reaching the warning threshold, but possibly it could reach. Okay, next step is check top processes. Check the top processes consuming the most CPU, right? And so if I click on that, It will give me a listing of the top processes along with their corresponding CPU usage. And I, as a user, can look at all these processes. Okay, I wonder which of these are really needed and maybe which of these I could possibly get rid of, okay? Next step, kill processes consuming most CPU if needed. Locate the process with the highest CPU. And if the process is not needed, then you can run this step to kill the process, okay? So looking at this, maybe this particular process is not needed. So let me go ahead and grab that. I can, launch this next step. It's asking me for the process ID, which I can specify. I can save. And then if I click this, then, the process is killed, okay? So this is a very simple example of how you can use how you can use Runbook to run some basic triage or maybe resolution steps in context of a metric. Okay. In summary, we hope, or I hope that these features that we just described give you some ideas for how you can leverage it and in terms of managing your own incidents. To recap our solution, we recommend that you create incidents for events that are actionable. You can open tickets and send notifications on these incidents. We recommend leveraging event compression policies using either our own out-of-box policies or create your own. Use event compression analysis to test the effectiveness of these policies against your own events. And then remember to use that in conjunction with your incident rules in order to actually leverage those policies when creating incidents. And then finally, dynamic runbooks, start looking at all of these, these gems, these procedures that you might have in different places, put them all inside Enterprise Manager so that they become easily and conveniently accessible to your IT ops teams in context of that incident that they're triaging, or even in context in the future of the event that they're monitoring as well. And then remember to leverage Oracle provided runbooks, okay? I think I'm at the end, but just a couple more slides. All of the information I talked about here is available in our documentation. We have blogs that talk about these latest features. Quick tour, you can just Google Enterprise Manager, monitoring quick tour. If you Google that, we'll actually provision a live environment for you where you can try out some of these new features yourselves. We have an environment and a self-guided workbook that walks through all of these steps. Go ahead and try it out if you want. And then finally, as Steve said, last but not the least, if you are interested in helping shape future product direction, we invite you to join our customer advisory board. We're the team that produces Enterprise Manager as well as Observability Management Cloud Services, O&M. We have virtual cab sessions. We have an actual in-person, we're super excited, in Redwood Shores, May 21st to 23rd. If you're interested, please email entmanager_us@oracle.com. As we also have other webinars for our, cloud, for our cloud offering, and here are other material as well. Okay. Are there other questions? I'm happy. I know at the end of the hour, hopefully all the questions have been addressed. If not, happy to take more.
Chris, looks like a question just came up for you.
Okay.
But
Okay.
while we start to close out this
Mhm.
session, please get any last minute questions you've got in right now. If the team is open, we can stay on a little longer. But also, if you guys come up with any questions for Anna and her team after this, feel free to respond back to the NYOUG email or the Viscosity email, and we'll forward it along for you. So otherwise, I'll let questions come through, but thank you so much, Anna. What a great hour of information and awesome resources here for everybody.
Okay, can we stay longer, Monica, or
Yes, yeah.
okay.
I mean, folks,
I'll
if you
stay as
guys
long
have
as
to go, there is a recording that will be posted to nyoug.org, so we can keep going here. And if you've got to drop off, just head over to the NYOUG website to rewatch what you missed. Go ahead, Anna.
Sure, yeah. So Kevin, I think, or Chris, you want to answer this? I think you and Chris have been
Sure.
talking. Yeah.
Right. So Kevin's asked a few questions about runbook management and how different users could interact with a single version of a runbook. So the way it works is Anna had shown you how you create a draft. When you create a draft, that is essentially private to the owner of the draft. Even a runbook administrator wouldn't be able to do anything with that draft. It's really up to the user who owns it. Once that is published, it does become somewhat public. Other users could do a create like on that published runbook and kind of take over the development of it. They would have to, once they do a create like, they would have a draft of that runbook that they could edit, modify, change as they saw fit. So specific to the question that Kevin just asked, if you have a junior admin who published a runbook, that published runbook can be used by the senior admin to go ahead and create their own copy and make the edits in their copy and publish that. It would present as two different copies. The original owner still maintains ownership of that, of their own runbooks. So if you want to have it appear as a single copy, then there is a way to hide essentially the original published runbook and let the senior admin their copy take over as the one that you present. So it's not as easy as passing around a published runbook that different users can operate on as if it were the same one, but there are options within what we do support that would allow you to make it kind of look that way.
Thanks, Chris.
Sure.
Kevin, let us know that you had follow up. Okay, I think Monica, you answered the recordings. Chris, new version. Yeah. So, well, if you could email Chris about new version of EM. Yep, we're always doing new things in the EM team. Please email this @manager_US and tell them, hey, I'm interested. When and if you're going to announce new releases in Enterprise Manager, because we do have activities planned for that. So to be in the loop, please contact them so that when there's any announcement, we have your email address and we make sure that, you're part of, any activities that we have relating to any new enhancements, features, all of that. Hope that answers the question. And then I think you answer the how do we access the recording, okay?
Yeah, I think they said that you can go to the NYOUG site and find those.
Yep, okay. I think that's it. Okay, I think that's it. Well, thank you again. Thank you everyone for your time. Thank you for all the questions. And as mentioned, if you're interested in joining our CAB, please send us email. And thank you, Monica, and thank you, Coleman, for inviting us to the webinar.
Yes, thank you so much. We hope to have you back again. That was great. And yes, as Chris said, it will be at NYOUG.org. Coleman, I believe you guys will have an email go out when they're posted, or should they just go check it out?
Check it out. It should be at least within the week. It should be up there. Both the PowerPoint and also the MP4 will be up there. Yes.
Perfect. All right, guys, thank you so much. I hope you join us again. We've got another team member of theirs presenting for us again on the 26th, I believe. So we hope to see you back here. Again, you can sign up for that one if you haven't already at NYOUG.org or at viscosityna.com. So we hope to see you there and hopefully at more and more webinars of ours. Thank you, Coleman. Thank you, Anna. And we hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.